Hello, and welcome to the Legal Marketing Brief, the series where we showcase attorneys from across the country and learn about the strategies they use to market successful practices. I'm John Simpson, CEO of Converted Marketing. Today, we're sitting down with David Shuster of the Shuster Law Firm in Louisville, Texas. David is a bankruptcy lawyer and also an endurance athlete, having completed multiple Ironman triathlons. Today, David shares how his background in endurance sports has helped both his clients and his own business. So with that, we hope you enjoy our discussion with David. So David, really excited to have you here today and have this conversation. You know, I always like to start at the top when I'm talking to attorneys and understand what got you to be a lawyer in the first place.
Okay, yeah. I went to college and majored in economics, and I needed a minor, actually. And so I decided to take some criminal justice classes, and there was a professor there who, was kind of like an introduction to like a basic law school classes, the way he did it. I mean, he talked about cases and learning how the law is formed. It was like the first time going to school that I really enjoyed it, actually. And so, he even had one assignment where he sent us to a courtroom and then write about what we saw. Like I said, I enjoyed it, got an A, and, took more of his classes. And so that was basically it. Talking to that professor upon graduation and decided to go ahead and go to law school. Really, my last semester in college is when I made the decision.
So it really wasn't some master plan. It was being inspired by this lawyer and, this professor and his class that got you into it. So you're now running Shuster Law. Can you tell us a little bit about the scope of your practice today?
Yeah, I handle primarily bankruptcy law. Started out my career doing personal injury defense, working for insurance companies, working for the devil, as I like to say. So doing defense work for the first few years at a mid-sized law firm. And then that law firm kind of imploded due to tort reforms. It cut down on lawsuits. And so it went from being a mid-sized law firm to basically being just the partners and a couple of associates. And so I just went out on my own and was doing a little bit of everything really at the time. I did some criminal defense, I did some divorces and a little bit of everything. And then I did personal injury as well. But, starting out, it was hard to get the cases. The office that I was in, it was like an office sharing with another company to save money. And there was a credit counseling agency that opened upstairs, and she came downstairs and goes, "Hey, you an attorney?" I'm like, "Yeah, I'm an attorney." So, "Hey, can you do some bankruptcies? Because I got people that need to file bankruptcy." And so being out on my own, kind of trying stuff out, I was like, "Well, this is perfect. Let me try this." And so I started doing bankruptcies at that time and have been doing so for about 20 years. And personal injury, I still do that mainly on referrals from past clients. So I don't have a huge personal injury docket, but so I can still give a little closer attention on those cases when I do get them. But yeah, personal injury and bankruptcy are the primary practice areas, and some light civil litigation as well, which goes along with the personal injury.
Well, it's interesting, just like the story about the professor that sort of inspired you to get more interested in the law. It sounds like there was a serendipitous
Exactly. Yeah.
your office mate who got you into bankruptcy law. We actually
just to wrap that one up, I eventually did a bankruptcy for this lady.
Interesting.
For the credit counselor. Yeah.
Yes.
So, some years later, of course, but she was a nice lady.
I'm sure she became your best referral source if she wasn't already.
Yeah.
We actually saw you out at the NACPA conference in April in Los Angeles, and there seems to be a lot going on in terms of consumer bankruptcy right now. Can you talk a little bit about some of the trends that you're seeing in consumer bankruptcy, perhaps now versus other points when you've been practicing in this area?
Yeah, I think that the trend is lately, and it's not super lately, but probably within the past 5 to 10 years, it seems like the stigma for filing bankruptcy is lifting a little bit. It seems like more when I'm talking to people, they realize it's not like I'm not admitting defeat. I'm not saying I'm a failure because I'm filing bankruptcy, but rather I'm resetting myself, using the law to get myself in a better position rather than focusing on the past. I'm curing my situation. And the credit scores are bouncing back like way quicker than they were when I first started doing this. It used to be a year or two it would take to really see a significant improvement in credit and get credit cards. And now it's really quick. That and also small businesses I think still small businesses are struggling. That's a trend where the business bankruptcies have been on the rise, and the small businesses have been really just surviving with the economic handouts that the government gave after COVID. And so I'm seeing that those have been steady lately.
Yeah, I'm sure. We've heard that before, and we're hearing a couple of trends. I'd be curious to get your take on it. One is, yes, a lot of the stimulus packages that were made available to consumers and businesses are obviously getting long in the tooth and/or are gone. You've got inflation, so prices and things like that might have been set prices to customers, but the underlying costs that are going into them are now higher, squeezing margins. And
Yep.
then we're hearing, obviously, that on the consumer side, that student loan debt is obviously a factor that exists today. Is that consistent with what you're seeing in your practice?
That's another one. Yeah. Student loan debt is another. It's like this thing that's just sitting there that everyone's ignoring. It's only recently, from what I've read, they're starting to report again to the credit bureaus. And immediately I'm getting that from my clients as well. Oh, it's going to start hitting my credit now. And so, yeah, that's a big one. That's sort of like the elephant in the room. You're talking to a client about some debt. I got $50,000 of credit card debt I can't pay, whatever. And then, oh, by the way, I also have $80,000 in student loan debt. And there's an exception to the discharge for that. So depending on the jurisdiction, there are some options, but very limited options. So yeah, that's a big one that I think will be a trend in the future is how do we deal with this, and hopefully in bankruptcy.
Talk a little bit about, a little bit more about you and your practice. And so, one of the questions I always like to ask is, when you're at your best, how would clients describe the way you work with them?
Yeah, good question. I mean, ideally, hopefully, I would think that they would describe me as just really something that I tell clients on the phone if they say like, hey, tell me about you, or I should hire you. I've always done this is just, be honest, like not just honest, but authentic and a straight shooter. Do I need this legal service? If I, before I did bankruptcy, they're say, oh, I want to hire you to defend this lawsuit. And it's like, well, this could cost tens of thousands of dollars and you could get awarded nothing. Really just being brutally honest with all clients about what to expect and do I need this legal service, and just be genuine with them and authentic, really. I would hope that that's what all clients would say about it.
Yeah, for sure, especially in this practice in particular. Yeah. Well, it's interesting. This is the first time I've ever interviewed somebody who has been on their walking treadmill during the interview, which I love.
Oh, great.
Now, I know in your background, you have, in our previous conversations, you've competed in many Ironman triathlons and other endurance-based events. I'm curious, can you take anything that you've learned from completing the Ironman or any of these other epic physical challenges and talk about how it might have benefited your business and law practice?
Yeah, definitely. And thanks for not telling me to shut off the walking treadmill. But yeah, the Ironman was a fun time in my life. Ironman competitions is about a 10-year or so span where I did 17 or 18 Ironmans. And it was quite an adventure. It became a nice lifestyle, actually. Like anything, I had a couple of mentors of people that had done a lot before, and you could get by with a lot less training for that than you think after you've done a handful of them. For example, I would not swim train at all. No swim training, because as long as you don't drown, you get through it at a pace, that where you can get on the bike and start pushing the pedals. So the cycling was the biggest part of it. As far as lessons it taught me, that's a great question, because at the start of these things, like I'm literally scared, very scared. Even the last one I did, I'm like, oh God, I really need to learn how to swim. But once you start doing something, once you start swimming, and then it's all about, oh gosh, how am I going to get through this long bike ride? Like, are you kidding me? I'm already tired. And then you just keep going. And then you get off. When am I going to get off the bike? Oh, I got off the bike. How the hell am I going to run this far? And then you just take the steps and keep going. And so the kind of like a life lesson is, that's how life is. You get insurmountable sometimes things like, how am I going to get out of this? What am I going to do about that? And you just have to break it down into what's in front of you, with the end in mind, obviously, but what's in front of you. Just break it down step by step and think about the next pedal stroke, the next arm stroke, the next step, and you'll get there. And so I thought that that's a kind of a valuable lesson for any obstacle you face, is just, you can get through it if you put your mind to it, type of thing.
Absolutely. I mean, do you find that when clients are coming to you sort of in distress, right? I mean, financial distress, is that
Yeah.
mindset of saying, hey, we can get through this, but here's what we're going to do right now. Do you find that that's
Yeah.
something that really helps
Oh,
them?
100%. Yeah. 100%. Because that's all the time. I mean, just talked to a lady this morning and she's just really not that much debt. Like it's not that big of a, I mean, it runs the gamut, right? I got this little amount of debt, a little creditor suing me, and then I have this massive amount of debt. Whatever it is, people kind of take on these things differently. And most of them will have that mindset of like, I'm horrible. I'm like, oh, really? And I ask them, well, how are you doing? You know, how's your health doing? Right? How are your kids doing? Like, okay, well, you sound like you're okay. So, we can get through this easily. It's called bankruptcy, right? It's less painful than you would think.
That's got to be such a refreshing message for them to hear is like, let me put this into context for you.
Yeah.
You got your health, you got your family, you have these other things. This is maybe not going the way you want, but there's relief here, and this is the steps you're going to do. Everybody feels better when they have a plan. They feel even better when they're executing against that plan. So let's get that going.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Yeah, it's just that's what I love about the practice of bankruptcy law, actually, because it's such a firm, definite solution to a problem that people have and they think there's no way out.
Yeah, most definitely. Well, let me ask you about the evolution of your practice. So you said you've been practicing, I believe, on your own for 20 plus years. Can you walk us through the sort of pivotal moments throughout the development of your practice?
Yeah, probably, what I've already talked about with respect to just figuring out what kind of area of law I was going to practice. Obviously, it's like, oh, okay, bankruptcy, I like this, I got a referral source. And then really the most pivotal moment would probably be when I joined up with two other lawyers that I had known, law school buddies, actually. We got together and we formed a law firm. They did different things than I did, criminal defense, family law. It was pivotal because we shared expenses, and then we could now have a shared assistant. And then the shared assistant became each having our own assistant. And then, eventually, after I was with them for 10 years before I was on my own by myself first, then I hooked up with them, and then I went out on my own again. And just the ability to have a team working for you would be the most pivotal. As each time I took on, another assistant, and I have just one attorney working for me now. Eventually, I'd like to hire another one. But those are pivotal because, they're people that you can train and that you trust. If you're good to them, they'll stick with you, hopefully. And just, developing that team was really just an awesome thing to be able to do.
Well, that's an interesting story how you built scale in your business, with your law school partners, and then eventually got to the size where you could sort of break out on your own.
Yeah.
That's really powerful. Security in numbers, right? It's a really
Right.
smart strategy.
Right. Yeah, 100%. Yeah. Yeah.
Can you talk a little bit about your marketing journey? So when did you start advertising your services?
Well, right away, that would have been probably when I went out on my own. It was, I guess, 2005. This will date me, but I had a Yellow Pages ad. Okay. It wasn't one of those costly full page ads or anything, but a little tiny little thing, cost you a certain amount each month. And so that was, for me, it was Yellow Pages and a friend of mine that was competent enough to build me a website. Those two things, like that was it. And then to go to bar functions and try to get on some sort of list where if someone needs this, they can, if you're doing criminal defense, you need to be on this list. Here's a list of people you can call. So there wasn't a whole lot to it, even though there was the internet and everything. I mean, it was mainly subscribing to these other companies that were good at getting the clients online, unless you have a lot of money and a huge marketing budget that you can do this all on your own. So the evolution was just, figuring that out and what works, what to spend money on and what not to spend money on. We're doing this video here today, and I started doing videos a while back, and really not much was happening with them. But then a couple of years, it seemed like people would call, hey, I saw your video. And so it's just one of those things where you're just putting stuff out there, however, if you could find the time to do it. And that's what I really like to do. I mean, I don't do enough of them because they take time, but it's a chance for people to actually be able to see you and hear you talk, and they can make a decision like, oh, this guy's full of it, or this guy is someone I want to talk to.
I couldn't agree more, David. It sort of feels like it's kind of like going in and trying on clothes, right? Like I want to see how this person presents themselves because I want to know, like, if I'm talking about my financial future and my deepest, darkest financial secrets, like I want to feel like this is somebody that I can trust and somebody that I'm a good fit with. So it tends to be a good medium. So can you talk about how you're marketing today? What does your mix of marketing look like?
Yeah, well, I use converted marketing and for website management. I still don't have a huge marketing budget, honestly. I just don't because I think I've been around long enough where I've got clients calling me up. So essentially, my marketing is I would say it's probably a lot review based. I've got I try to get clients to leave me reviews, and a lot of people don't take the time. The amount of reviews that I have are maybe a few hundred, but it's pathetic compared to how many clients I've served. It consists of just trying to get reviews so people can see like, oh, this guy's trustworthy. Trying to put out content like these videos, and then website management. So when people click on to search certain terms, then they can find me. That's pretty much the extent of it nowadays.
Makes sense. One of the things that we find lawyers are tremendously interested in is the intake process. And, it sort of surprised us a little bit. It's not the flashiest thing in the world. Can you talk a little bit about how you think about your intake process? And
Yeah, the best thing, it would be great if we could just get into all the specifics of a client's call, like when they call, because they're taking the time to call. Maybe usually that means they have time to talk about their situation. I mean, I'll take a call if I'm right now, obviously I won't, but if I finish this and have a gap in my schedule, I'll take the call because I like to get them fresh. Because when your question is about intake and attorneys focus on that, ultimately what happens is you get these appointments set up, people don't show up. Fortunately, now it's a lot easier because this is probably a pivotal moment as well, actually, that I completely forgot about. And that is that people became more and more comfortable just either doing a Zoom call or even just a straight telephone call and saying, okay, you're my guy. And maybe that's because they did see a video, but it really is just because you're talking to them honestly, giving them advice, and they don't care if they're in front of you in your office. So that was very pivotal post COVID, when people just became more comfortable doing business virtually, really, and not have coming to the office. But focusing on the leads is like you said, on the intake, is just keeping them. You got the lines in the water, and you get bites, but how do you reel them in? And the attrition or the fallout, like people took the time to call, you get the basic facts, you see that they need a solution of some sort, and then you just watch them drop off, and nothing ever happens. And then it's like, I think that I could, like most attorneys, I could spend more time finding out why that happens and how that happens. And so, yeah, it is a constant thing where I do look at those numbers and be like, hey, what happened to these leads? Why did they, hit them again, hit them, give them another call, give them another text message, see if we can talk to them again. Because once you get them and you spent the time putting them in your system, it's a shame to lose them.